About Gemara. Today's shir is dedicated to an old Harvard here from Daf Yomi, George Hoffman or David Ben Yamin, I think. Ben Yaakov Moshe, whose 14th yard site is today. Someone who loved learning every single day he would come, especially when it came to Agadata. He was the happiest person on the planet. And we are convinced that he's definitely still learning with us Daf Yomi every single day. In Shemayim. We should have an aliyah. We're up to Daf Kuf Samach Daled. Okay, actually Kuf Samach Gimel on the base, the very bottom of the page. So we had Rav and Rabbi Yochanan. They both said that if the witness and the contents of the star are both on the erased part of the or Rav said, if it's on the erased part, then there's nothing to be suspicious that they erase something because the Eidim are signed on the erased part as well. So they've obviously read what it says and they're signing, attesting to that. Rav said, the bottom line of the page, Shtar Haba, who the Eid of Alamechek, if you have a star in front of us and the contents of the star and the witnesses are both signed on the erased part, kosher is kosher. But why aren't we worried as follows? Maybe everything is erased. He wrote the contents and the witnesses signed, and then afterwards he erased the contents again, because once it's erased, and then he put something new there. And who knows how devious he is and what he placed over there. How do you know that? And nobody's going to be suspicious because the witnesses are also signed on an erased part of the get of the star. So the Gemara says, because you can't compare something's erased once to twice. Because one of the explanations is in when it comes to parchment, when you erase, part of the parchment comes up with it, peels off with it, and if you erase it twice, obviously it's more, and you can tell there's a difference. Or the shade is different, one is darker, one is lighter, and therefore you can tell the difference. Why aren't we worried? This guy is talking about a devious person. Okay, so you want to make sure that the signature of the witnesses, the erased part, looks similar to the contents of the star, but you're devious. You're going to want to erase what it says in the contents and put something of your own afterwards. So what you did was the following. On the section where the Eidim are going to sign, you put ink, black ink, erased it. So now what you have is the star, where you're going to write the contents has not been erased yet. Where the Eidim are signing was erased once, and then you erase it. And then what you're going to do is you're going to write the contents and the Eidim come and sign. And then afterwards, when you're going to erase the contents, it'll be twice erased, but the Eidim also be twice erased. Yeah. It'll look the same, exactly. They're both exactly the same. Rav holds, Eidim will not sign if their section is erased. They will not sign. They will not sign unless they see what you erased over here. What is it that you erased, and why are we signing on an erased part? And if they will notice as well that the section above is not been erased, and their section where they're supposed to sign has been erased, they're not going to sign. Because the Eidim are kluvi, even though there might be amaratzim, but they're not stupid, and they can see something is fishy over here. Where their signing has been erased, and the part where you're going to write this, where the star is written, is not erased. What's going on here? So you want to make, I'll ask you a question on Rav. What had said the following in the Braisa? Who al haniyah, the contents of the star was written, the first time on the cloth. The eight on the paper, the aid of alamechek, and the witnesses are signed on the erased part, it is kosher. If the content of the star was written on a clear part, it is kosher. It says it's kosher. Why? Because it was never erased before. Now the chayda, in 5 years from now, why is it kosher? Maybe he'll erase the top part and then write whatever he wants. And then when you present it to another city, to another place, and you show them the star, everything looks like it's an erased part. The Eidim were erased once, right? Because they signed on an erased part. The content of the star is erased once. It's all the same. It flows. So aren't we inviting trouble? Maybe he'll erase the contents of the star. The kosher might the boy, then he'll write erased once, write what he wants. Now when we front up to another bezin, what are we going to see? Everyone is on the same one erasure. He says, you're right. You know when it works? You know when the Braisa talk about it's limited to the following. The kosher hachi. The witnesses, when they sign and they're in an erased part and they see that the contents are on a clear part, they have to add something. They write, we witnesses, chasamna, we signed al marka on the race part, but you should know Vishtada Kosov al Niyada. The star was written on the clear part, so that you can't tomorrow come along and erase it. You think so simple? The Kosov Hecha, where exactly do you write this? Underneath their signature, they write this clause. Guy is like, he'll just cut it off. And if it's above, because it's all erased, because the Edom are erased, they'll erase that part as well as the rest of the contents. And then when we come to another bezin, what are we going to see? One erasure, and whatever it says, it says. So what do we achieve? And the Gemara, the Kosri ben Sada l'Sada, you put it in between the witnesses. So you can't erase it. You can't erase it. So, and if you're going to erase it, even though the Edom already signed an erased part, it'll be a double erasure. We'll see that it's a second erasure, and you could tell when it's right sandwich in between, one erasing, and two, that something is not right here. Something must have been written here and it's been erased. I might erase that part and the next aid, then it'll be only a star with an aid echad, which then doesn't have the powers of a star to seize from the kuchas. If anything, it all does is it makes you swear. Freddy okay, that's what we're talking about. Then what the Adim have to add a clause to make sure we understand what happened here. That's a protection. So tell me the pshat in the Baraisa and the Sefer Kolochayid. It says that there's a certain stat that's disqualified. Use the same protection. What is that? Look at the next case. It says, "Who alamechek?" What happens? The contents of the star was on the erased part. The Adim on the other Adim signed on the clear part. Puzzle is puzzle. It is puzzle. Now, why is it puzzle? Why is it puzzle? Because we're scared that he's going to erase the contents of the star, and it's erased anyway. In the erase the contents and write something else. That's why it's puzzle. Let them write. We sign on the paper. We started al machka, and the star is on the race part. What are you going to say? You're scared, but even if we write that, we'll say, okay, we're the clear part, and the star was on the race part, and they're gonna. And what are you scared? You're scared that they're gonna erase the race part and write again. But you just told us before, we can tell if it's raced once or twice. Says Gemara, no. You can tell if it's all on the same star and one part of the star was erased once and one part of the star was erased twice. You can see the shade is different, the color is different, the cloth looks different. You can tell. But if there's nothing to compare it to, and all you have is a cloth in front of you, you can't really tell it was erased once or twice because maybe they erased it once, but they scrubbed the lot. I mean, you can't really tell. When they were signed on the mechik, then we can compare. The mechik of the Edim looks different than and these are kosher Edim, and if they signed on the race part, you can tell the difference if it's erased once or twice. The other part is erased twice. But the Edim signed on the clear part. On the clear part, how are we going to know that the contents are erased once or twice? How do you know? Why don't you bring another scroll and get erased once and then compare the two? Believe me, so you can't compare one scroll to the next. Each cloth is thicker, thinner. The reactions are different, so you cannot compare one to another. Okay, I have an idea. You told me of the Adam signed on the clear part and the star written on the erase part. We're scared that he'll erase it again and put whatever he wants. So this is what you do. Let's do the test. We want to do the test now to see if it's a kosher or not. Bring the star the way it is. The Edim are not on the Edim on the clear part. Bring it to a bezin. Let's certify the signature. Either we have the signatures on other documents, or to Edim come in, and no, they're not around. But then we'll erase the chsim of the Edim and then compare the top of the contents to the very Edim. Could we erase it now and then we'll see? So look at does that rate once or twice? I mean, there's a remedy here. Why just disqualify it? Because when you disqualify it, the Malbek can't collect his debt or whatever it is. It's dysfunctional. Erase the Edim signature now that we've established that it's kosher Edim, and then compare the two parts of the shtar. That aged, and once something aged, you can't compare the 1 day old to 2 days old. So wait, don't do straight away. Wait a few days. Let it to the erase the Edim. Wait a couple of days and then go compare. Not every bezin knows all of these kunst and all of these trickeries, and they therefore might make a mistake. So to avoid it, we just say, you know what? We cannot have a situation where the Edim are signed on the clear part and the star is written on an erased part. Because it could be he will erase it and make any changes he wants. In our Mishnah, we said that Chanina ben Gamliel argues. Chanina ben Gamliel says, he says that if you take a get mekusher and he said if you take a get mekusher and you had the Adim sign inside, the Tanakhama said it's a squalor. A get mekusher Adim has to be on the outside. He says no, you can always unfurl it, you can open it up, and now it turns into a normal document. And a normal document, the Adim are inside, no problem. So why does the Tanakhama say that it's not a problem? Why does Tanakhama say it's a disqualified star if you tied it up, mekusher, and you signed inside? What's wrong? You know what's wrong? Answer the Gemara. Mekusher, hey, Rebbe answered. According to Rebbe, in fact, who's defending the Tanakhama, asked the question. Here we have an interesting idea. The dates on an ordinary star are different than the dates on a get mekusher. The date on an ordinary star is today's date. And in those days, they used to date everything. We haven't tasted the Bria Island, but those days they should date everything beginning of Gemara Rosh Hashanah by the king, the current king, when he was appointed. It's a covet for the king to use him as the third year of the reign of whatever the name of the king is. So by a star posher, they would, if the king was a king for 2 years, they would say in the second, 2 years from the reign of the king. But if it was a star mekusher, they would say 3 years. They made it, and as Rashi Ram and others have explained, we want to make as many differences as possible between a get mekusher and an ordinary get to make it a bit more difficult, takes more time. So these kohenim, meanwhile, these angry kohenim can sort of calm down. So by get mekusher, they have a different date. So how can you take a get mekusher and turn it into an ordinary star, or star mekusher and turn it into an ordinary star? The dates are different. If he's 18 per year, he's a first year. Aber mekusher, molach shana mein l'shtayim. A mekusher for the first year we say 2 years because the cover, like we say, capital till we go to the next year, we give a cover to the king. And shtayim, and we'll see later, depends on the meaning of Malcolm. Shtam mu'ucher. Mu'ucher, even though we had a machlek in Rosh Hashanah, here we said the halach is shtam mu'ucher is kosher. Shtam mu'ucher means you make a later date. The only one who gets hurt out of it is the lender, because you cannot collect from buyers, anyone that bought from the time of the loan until the date on the star. You can't collect from the people if the borrower has no money, because how do they know to protect themselves?
If woman comes to base to prove she's been divorced, get this date in 6 months' time. So you've been divorced. This is
okay. We had get muchs only by moments, not by get there. But get mekusha is all started. We had in the beginning of the Mishnah, and we said no, yeah. Once we did, that was the trigger, the catalyst. But once we've had that, we made a uniform rule because it's the first Mishnah in this Pedic. Talking about all kinds of starters. So what's the problem? Okay, so what's the problem of the dates? This is the problem. If you have a get mekusha, listen to the interesting problem. This is what the Rebbe says the problem is. If you have a get mekusha, and the get mekusha says the loan took place the third year of the reign, right? A get posher would have said the same thing would have said the second year. Let's say, okay, it's a whole year between the two stars, the potential two stars. He has money, 90 days. It was a 90-day loan. So he paid on time. The borrower paid on time. He goes to the lender. Okay, I'm ready to pay. Give me back my document. And he says, I lost it. I'll give you a receipt. What date does he put on the receipt? The current date, the real date. 9 months later, the lender pulls out the star mekusher and he says, this is a new loan. Forget me. I know you paid over one. You have a receipt. But this is a year later. He'll deceive the guy. Now, who exactly does he get hurt from here? So Tosha says, if the borrower gets hurt, no rachmanis. You shouldn't have paid. You should have said, give me my star back. But the lekuchas are going to get hurt because the lekuchas get hurt because anyone that bought property from him, they have no idea what's going on over here. They'll get hurt. It's not fair. Or Tosha says, maybe we could have rachmanis on the borrower. He doesn't know the differences between a get mekusha and a get pasha. Everybody is so au fait with all of these different nuances. Anyway, so Rebbe says, he'll borrow money with the get mekusha. He'll have money in between. He'll pay. And he'll say, give me my star. He says, I lost it. The cost of lay, and he writes a tabra, a shaver. He writes him a receipt. The chimata zimne, when it comes to the time, mashale pasha, he'll pull it out as if it's a get pasha. He won't call it a get makusha all the time. It was a get pasha, even though it might have holes there for the stitches, whatever. But we decided to make it a get pasha. You owe me money. Hani hashta the other minay, and this is a new loan. Says the Gemara. So what's going to answer to that to Tanakama? That's Tanakama's problem. Why he says you cannot take him a makusha and turn it a pasha. So he answers back, ain't kaisin shaver. I hold that you don't, because we'll have later in the Gemara, a big machlek we already had before many times. Do you write receipts or not? Because one opinion says you don't write receipts. It's not fair. Now the borrower who paid back for the rest of his life, he has to make sure that he has it in a secure box. No, the lender has to have a star. If he doesn't have a star, you don't collect. And therefore the borrower will not pay you back unless you have the star. He's not going to pay you back. And don't tell the borrower it's his responsibility. He'll take a receipt. The rest of your life you have to guard. So it's not like this. So there's no receipts. So the traces in the beginning of the Sechta, other shame in the beginning of the Pedigree, asks for every stammucher, why are we worried about a stammucher? How can stammucher be kosher? Every stammucher will have exactly the same problem. He'll say, I lost the star. You'll give me according to you'll give me you'll pay me now. Or so every stammucher, you're gonna pay me now, and then I'll pull out the star again because he said he lost it. He'll pull out the star again, and we'll say it wasn't mocha. This is the right date. You borrowed from me again 6 months later. So Traces has one opinion that the whole din of star mocha kashi you must or can only work if you hold that there's no receipts. Because the moment there are receipts, it's problematic. Anyway, or Traces says that in the shayv, in the receipt, you write the date that was on. If you remember that there was a star makushi, you write the date that this paying off a loan that happens to be written, is a later date. Anyway, so you write yeah. Me Boki Rebbe Makusha, we already had a story there before. We saw that he wasn't such an expert when it comes to Hadi Shtar Makusha. But Makusha doesn't come Rebbe came Rebbe Shtar Makusha. Rebbe said that this is a delayed shtar. He looked at the shtar Makusha. He saw the date was a year later. He said, "Oh, there's a shtar Makusha. It's a machlekes, gosh, not gosh. What's going on here?" Amalei, and we had a story before that he said there's no date at all. So obviously this story happened afterwards because now he knows to look for the dates. But the date is the wrong date. The Talmud Chacham said to Rebbe, that's their custom. A year into the kingdom, you counted us two. Boss answered the Gemara. Taki didn't know at the time, but Boss of the Shama Mezon, he agrees that that's the minig hamakim, and therefore it's perfectly all right. And that's why Rebbe says, in defense of Tanakama, how can you have a shtar makusha turn into a pasha? You're going to end up cheating the lekuchas or the buyer or the borrower. I will start with the start of a kosev. It's written Mishnah's plainly Arkan. It doesn't say how many years he was a king. It just says the year Arkan. What year is that? Arkan can mean a leader, a ruler. So what does it mean? Like Avreich. Reich is a king. We should investigate. When did this king become a king? Because probably it's the first year. The first year we call him Arkan. Either it should be live long or whatever, all the different references that say it means. So it usually means the first year. Maybe it's many years later, and he's saying you should continue longevity. This is their custom. This is Greek now. Digun means two. But okay, Arkan means what? It's the first year, but I know it's the first year of the first reign. Sometimes, like we have a new president of the United States. He was a president 8 years ago. Then he took a recess for 4 years, and now he's going back to president. So maybe he's a king, deposed, and came back as a king. But then maybe he's going back. So I know maybe it's the second Arkan. I know which year is they going back to. It's called the second Arkan, not the first. Traces want to say Arkan does not mean king at all. It means just an officer. And the interesting thing, an officer is only appointed for 1 year. Because if it's a king, why would you write which year it is? These officers only had 1 year. Yeah, exactly. But only 1 year. So therefore he's saying maybe that even though he was 1 year, but maybe they point him again. He was so good at the job, point him again. So I know which year we're talking about. Now the Gemara tells you a little bit Greek. Tell me, we learned. Hareni Nazir. If a guy says, I'm a Nazir, Sumcha says, depends what he answers. If he says, that's one. Digun is time 2. Trigun is Gimel 3. Tatrigun is Arba 4. And Pentagon, which we're all familiar with, is Chamish, because the 5-guy building. So it means 5 Naziris, 5 periods of Naziris, or 4 periods of Naziris. So we learned. Bayis Ugl around house. The din of Taras only applies to a 4-wall house. If it's around a circle house, or Trigun, 2 walls, and then the rest is a circle, a semicircle, or pentagon, 5 walls. Ain't no time in the game. There's no laws of leprosy. Tatrigun, but if it's 4 walls, metame ben goyim. There is. How do we know? Who cares what the shape of the house is? What we learned. Lamailam, and one passage says that the Kohen should go ahead and see and observe the leprosy that's on the walls. They use the word "bikir reisa bais" on the walls of the house. Because it said the wall. It says walls, which seems to be extra 2. That's walls is 2. Shtayim and Lamatim is another passage. It says the king comes back, Kohen comes back 7 days later and observes again, and he sees that the leprosy spread again. It says bikir reis. The walls could have said wall. I'm the kid. Kirais is teacher stein. That's 4. They can't out before. Taste already asks us more psukim with walls, but each one of those is needed for something else. Ahum Mekusha, the Gemara tells a story. The Mekusha, we already had a story before. But now the Gemara sort of digresses into another inyan which has nothing to do with this whole Gemara here. In fact, the sugi of this thing we're about to learn is an erchin. That's one of this. The Gemara just throws it in. Ahum Mekusha. The also the Kamed Rebbe came for Rebbe. The star Mekusha. Well, Rebbe Ain's Mama, this is the first time. What kind of star is this? There's no date here. So you didn't know that there was all sealed in. His son said to him, Shema Bank Sharav Muvla, maybe if you unfurl it, you'll see there's a date there. Palya, he opened it up, and that's the we brought it, but the Adim were signed in the back, so therefore he knew they were Adim. Palya, they undid it, and the Chazia, they saw there was a date. How the Chazia Rebbe big kishes. Now the story continues. This is what we learned last time. Now we're continuing the story. Rebbe looked at his son in a very derogatory way. Amalei. So Rebbe said, why you make such a get mekusha? Rebbe didn't like the whole idea. It's too complicated. Not everybody's familiar with it. I didn't write it, but then he added, Rabbi Yehuda Chayte Kosre. It was Rabbi Yehuda Chayte. Amalei Klach Maloshen Hara. I said, what do you have to say? What do you have to mention him? All you have to say was, I didn't do it. It doesn't have to say someone else wrote it either. I didn't do it. End of story. Zimnin, another occasion, have Yossi Kamei was sitting before Rebbe, the Kapasik Siddur Sefer and he was organizing he was writing a Sefer Tehillim. Amar Rebbe said, "Wow, Kama Miyusha, how straight, Ksav how beautiful Ksav." Amalei Lava no Kasafti. So Reb Shimon said, "I didn't write it." Navos Yehuda Chayte Kasu. The same Yehuda Chayte wrote it. I'm the Klach Maloshen Hara. The first story, Loshen Hara, and even that's a bit difficult to say what's Loshen Hara. So Rebbe doesn't like it, but it wasn't a bad thing. He's saying that Yehuda Chayte wrote it, a beautiful ksav. What did Rebbe say? It's a beautiful ksav. What's going on here? Gemara says, Mishum de Avdimi, Ton Avdimi, Achva de Safra, Avdimi, the brother of Safra said, La'elam al Yisaper Adam Tevasa Shachaveda. Don't talk good about your friend. Compliment him. You'll come to bed. Now this is a difficult Gemara. It's a very difficult Gemara, because what's we find in Pirkei Avos Rabbi Yechon was moina shvachav shel tamid. It's a good thing to compliment. What do you mean it's a bad thing? So the Rambam says it's a bad thing only if you're meir. If you say too much, you elaborate too much, then you'll always too much. Some writers say, but yeah, he's talking about all that true, but in this Indian, you're inviting someone to complain. But if you just but the problem with that is, where do you see in this story there was Meirich? He just said one thing. This is the handwriting of this. The Rambam comes and changes around, and this question I asked the Rambam comes along and says that when is it also to say compliments about a person? Only in front of an enemy. And that's what brings down that only if you say lashon hara in front of if you say nice things about a person in front of somebody you know that he hates him, he'll turn it around and whatever he'll do. Rav Shimon is talking to his father. Where's the enemy here? Then the Rambam Pirkei Avos brings, and I think the Alter brings as well, and this must be the Hecher. The Rambam Pirkei Avos says that over there is that or berabim. If you say it in public, it's inevitable that someone in that crowd doesn't like him. Everybody has somebody who doesn't like him. Could be if it's a large crowd. So then, and then you have to, then you have, maybe the Rambam saying that because of the Gemara here. But where do you see it was a large crowd? It sounds like it was in the privacy of his room. The Rebbe was observing, the Ksav there. So this Gemara causes a lot of difficulties in the halachas of Lashon Hara. How do we understand? How does it fit into what we paskin over there? And interesting. The Gemara is right here. This part here about Lashon Hara. But we'll have more about an erchen, so we'll learn over there. Tell you what, right? Shalosh Avedas, ain't other nitzal mechol yom. But 3 Avedas that nobody can deviate from. One is Hira Aveda. One is Hira Aveda, thinking about Avedas Abaroyas. One is Ian Tefillah. Machlek is what Ian Tefillah means. So Bam said Ian Tefillah means you daven and you're so proud of yourself that you daven word for word and you're convinced that whatever I ask for, Hashem is going to grant me because I daven so beautifully. That's called Ian Tefillah, and that's considered, you're davening. The Eibusher will answer the way he wants to answer. Don't take it for granted. Or other Rishonim say that Ian Tefillah means Pasha daven without kavanah, and that everybody's it can be is guilty of. And Lashon Hara. Talking about a Lashon Hara, so that every day we talk Lashon Hara. Truth matters probably, yeah. But anyway, Alavak Lashon Hara. We're talking about the dust of Lashon Hara, which is not really Lashon Hara. And the example that the Rashbam brings is more erchen is you want to, where there's a fire in that person's house. And what you're saying that this person can afford to have fire, what you're really saying is that person has fire because he's rich and he spends money like a bad person. He doesn't care about everybody else, and he's ostentatious. All these other things. Exactly. So the Alter Rebbe actually adds in Shulchan Aruch, correctly, only if you said it in that kind of disparaging way. You said it in a way as if you're trying to say he's a glutton, he's hedonistic. Then it's Lashon Hara. But if you're saying it because a guy pushing wants firewood and needs wood, then there's nothing wrong with that. It's if you said it in a tone or an expression that you're making whatever. Let's finish the sugya. Raiv begezel. Most people are guilty of stealing. They convince themselves that this is not so bad. What I'm doing right over here, especially if you have a partnership, I work harder. I'm entitled to a bit more. Miyad baroyis, less people are negligent, can be liable of aroyis. Everybody's good Lashon Hara. Says the Gemara, but Lashon Hara. So that's everybody's good Lashon Hara. Ela avak Lashon Hara. Avak, which is now this is very interesting because today is the yard set of George Hoffman. And somebody who walked with him every single day for years told me that they used to walk around the park over here, which takes Cofield Park. He said they talk about politics, all good and fine, whatever they want. The moment he would tell them something negative about another person, George would close his ears. I wouldn't listen. Would not want to hear Lashon Hara. Today's Gemara, David's yard site. Have a listening on 80. Okay.